Hello everyone, welcome to the Selkares Wargaming channel for this new training video on Wargame Island Battle. So in this video I'm going to focus on the tanks, one of the last sections I haven't talked about. So just quickly to explain, I'm going to make two videos on the tanks. This one focused on the armory, all the I'd say the experimented players won't learn much here. The second video on its side will be focused on the battlefield. As usual, I'm going to explain little tips. One of them is pretty useful in my opinion. It's something I didn't know until recently. One of the devs told me it existed, and it's pretty useful if you're able to micro it. But I'm going to talk about it in the second video, so stay tuned. In this video, I'm going to talk about the tanks, and well, in general, tanks, in my opinion, is the heart of your army, is the heart of your formations. It's the only unit, in my opinion, that can really change the course of a battle. It's the only real offensive unit you have in game. Infantry is contained in cities and forests. It can't really go elsewhere. Support is primarily a defensive and bombardment unit. Recons just recon, they aren't designed to attack. Vehicles are generally either too weak or HGM vehicles, so they are pretty much defensive units. Helicopters and planes are pretty powerful, but if you are too aggressive with them, you can lose them stupidly. So in my opinion, tanks are really the major components of your armies when you want to launch an offensive. They are the units that are used to attack a defensive position, to keep moving, to keep up a movement, a blitzkrieg, if you want to talk about that. It's the unit that you want to use to keep the momentum in your games. So basically, you've got NATO and packed tanks. They both are quite different. But before going into the differences, I'm going to talk globally about tanks. So generally, when I talk about a different specific unit, infantry, support, and everything else, I divide them into subcategories. But that's pretty hard, to be honest with the tanks. You can't really divide them into subcategories. Some like to talk about cavalry tanks that are quite speedy with 70 kilometers per hour and above, but AMX-40 has the same speed also, but is too heavy to be really categorized as a cavalry tank. Some talk about light, medium, and heavy tanks. That's quite hard also to determine in which category you are. An AMX 30B2, for instance, for 50 points, 7 front armor is like, it's probably a small tank, but for the same price, you've got a Leopard C1 with 11 frontal armor, which is more of a medium tank. So it's really hard to draw a line between small, light, medium, and heavy tanks. So I don't really divide tanks into categories. In my videos, I generally talk about medium, small, and heavy tanks, but that's more point-wise. Tanks go generally from 15 points, like the Centurion over here, to 170 points for the well-known T-80U. So in my opinion, it's my opinion, but it's my way of doing things. I divide the tanks into 3 categories, so light, medium, and heavy, not regarding their stats, but depending on their price. It's generally 15 to 40-ish points. It's light tanks. From 40 to 70, 80, maybe 70, it's medium tanks, and above 70 or 80, it's a heavy tank. So that's pretty much how I categorize tanks, even if it's not accurate at all. It's So tanks, what are the major stats? First, let's start with these bottom stats over here. So we've got all these stats. Strength, all the tanks have 10 strength, so 10 HP, so that's a stat you don't really need to look at. Size, tanks go from medium to big. The T-80U, that's one of its strong points, it's only a medium tank. You take the other tanks, it's medium, even the AMX-10 RC SB is a medium tank. Heavy tanks on the NATO side are big, but from medium to big, it's just, it's not really a stat that matters that much, so I wouldn't really look at it that much. Optics, it's either poor or medium, maybe something different, but it's globally poor or medium. And either way, if generally if you play well, you've got a recon anyway near your tanks to detect the enemy units, so the optics on the tanks aren't always that useful. I wouldn't really take them into account while choosing tanks. Road speed, it's the same. You've got two exceptions, this one and the Cougar over here with wheels instead of tracks. So they are going at 150 kilometers per hour on road, but all the other tanks are tracked, of course, and they are at 110 kilometers per hour. So that's basically a stat you don't need to look at. Stealth, it's the same. They are pretty much all that poor, so you don't really use it. Fuel capacity and autonomy are a bit more useful. They vary a lot from one tank to another, but generally speaking, you don't need to refuel your tanks that much. A few of them need to be refueled regularly, but apart from those stats aren't that important either. The two real important stats in the armory are the stabilizer and the speed. Speed, you basically go from 40 kilometers per hour to 70 plus. The TATU, which is quite good, it's 75. It's one of the fastest ones. The French ones, which are fast also, are at 70 kilometers per hour. So that's basically the best speed, apart from the wheeled units, 100 kilometers and 85. Sorry. So speed is really useful. Some tanks I really don't like because of their speed, just like the T62 series. It's 40 kilometers per hour, 40, 40, and 50, 50. Basically, the colors are really indicative here. 40 and 50, it's pretty bad. Above 50 and below 70, it's the general speed of medium speed of tanks. It's quite good. You can play with those. 70 is 60 is really good, and 70 is top notch for tanks. You're speedy, you can move, you can retreat. It's really useful. Speed is really useful in three different situations. First, you are attacking, and the enemy has a better armor than you have AP, so you need to get closer to destroy his armor, to penetrate his armor, so you need to go fast and catch up with the enemy tank. Second option, you want to go around the tank to shoot him on the flank. You need to do that quickly, so you need a good speed. And third situation is the opposite. The tank is attacking you. You don't want him to penetrate your armor, so you want to retreat, to reverse, and you need a good speed to reverse faster than the enemy is going forward towards you. So that's basically the three basic uses, or the three basic interests of speed. Stabilizers. Stabilizers is also an important stat. It indicates the capacity of the tank to fire on the move. The accuracy of the tank depends on its weapon, so it goes from a crappy 3, for example, for the harpoon here, to a nice 12 for the French Brennus. So the stabilizer indicates, this stat here indicates your precision when you are not moving, when you are shooting immobile. The stabilizer indicates your accuracy while shooting on the move. You've got 5 types of stabilizers: none, bad, medium, good, and exceptional. None, you have no stabilizer. Your accuracy is at 5%. You have 5% to hit the enemy, whatever the accuracy of your weapon. For instance, this tank here has 5% shot hit chance with its 12 accuracy on the move. This one also, even if the Brennus has 4 times the accuracy of the harpoon, with its inexistent stabilizer on the move, it's still 5% chance. All other stabilizers, bad, medium, good, and exceptional, depend on the weapon's accuracy. The bad stabilizer, your chance of hitting, so your accuracy on the move, is equal to 50% of your basic accuracy. So for instance, if this tank had bad stabilizer, you would have 6 accuracy on the move. So that's 50% for bad. Medium, you've got between 50 and 75% of your basic accuracy. Good, it's between 75 and 85%, and exceptional is above 85%. So that's basically it. So it's pretty interesting to have good stabilizers, even if it isn't as important as one may think, and I'll show you that in the second video while moving tanks around on the battlefield. So that's basically it. The two important stats for tanks: speed and stabilizer. Then of course you've got the armor. Armor plays an important role. It indicates how much hit you can take. So front armor is the most important, of course, because you'll take most hits on the front. The side armor is pretty important also, because against good players you'll always take hits on your side armor, even if you are a good player yourself. So side armor is quite important. Top armor is also quite important, because cluster planes are quite good, and so they shoot their charges on their ammo on your top armor. So tanks like the basic AMX-30 tanks have one top armor, just like light vehicles, and you just get totally slaughtered by cluster bombs. AMX-40 is a bit better with 2, and the big tanks generally have 3, and the biggest ones like the Challenger 1 have 4. So these guys are really good at taking hits from planes. The rear armor is the least important, as usual. Of course, the best it is, the better you will resist if the enemy goes around your tank. But if you are a good enough player with good recon and good positioning, you generally won't get hit on the rear of your tank unless you make a small mistake, and instead of reversing, you just turn your tank around to flee and take hits at the rear, which is really bad. So basically, front, side, of course, a bit top, and rear is just generally if you're being shot at in the rear, you're already in a very bad position, so pretty much lost. Then the weapons. So you've got 4 types of weapons. The basic main gun, of course. Every tank has a main gun. Well, nearly every tank. A couple of them don't. Well, not these ones actually. You've got ATGM tanks. Of course, the most common ones are the packed tanks with ATGMs, and then you've got an MMG or a autocannon to go with it, like the French tanks. They have autocannon and an MG. You bear in mind that it's not easy to know if these fire at the same time as the main gun. The AMX-30, for instance, their autocannons don't fire at the same time as their main gun. So if they are shooting their main gun at transports or tanks, they won't fire the autocannon. Other units, like the KPZ-70 Killer here, the German prototype, shoots its main gun and its autocannon at the same time. So that's up to you to test a bit on the battlefield to see if they shoot at the same time or not, but it's something you need to take into consideration. An AMX-40 with all its weapons here doesn't shoot everything at the same time, so it's not as good as it may seem in the armor. So that's basically it: main gun, autocannon, MMG, and ATGM. Some tanks are a bit different. You've got, on the packed side, you've got flamethrower tanks, like here. They don't have a classic main gun. Oh yeah, they do. I'm just mistaken with the vehicles in the American section. This guy, the Zippo, has no main gun, just a flamethrower. So yeah, so the only units that don't have exactly main guns are the NATO troops, Centurion Avro, and the American M728 TEV. These guys are good, big assault guns, big mortars, short distance artillery. It's huge HE power, but no AB power. So it's basically a slow tank that can stun enemy tanks really quickly. So having 1 or 2 of them in your tank assault is really nice, or totally annihilating small vehicles or infantry squads. That's basically it. You've got 2 of those units, this American unit and the British variant, which is basically the same, just a bit slower, if you can imagine. That's 35 kilometers per hour and a different LMG. So that's basically it for the tanks. The last stat, well, going back to the main weapons, ATGM, of course, I already talked about them. You need a good range, good precision, good AP, etc. The thing you need to know about tanks is on the main gun. You've got 3 different categories of ranges. You've got the basic range of, let's say, light tanks, 1925 meters. Then you've got the medium range, 2100, and the last range for the biggest tanks, 2,275 meters. So it's basically 3 different ranges that the tanks have. Of course, the bigger the better, especially considering the AP scaling. So that's one last thing I wanted to talk about, AP scaling. When you choose your tank, you need a good range, a good accuracy, good AP power, and a good rate of fire. Of course, the faster you shoot, the quicker you can hit the enemy, or at least stun him. The more precise, the more you'll hit him instead of shooting next to him, and the more AP, the more damage you'll do. AP, how does it work? Well, this AP power is the damage dealt to the enemy armor at maximum range. So let's say I've got this tank here. At this range here, 2,275 meters, I'll be dealing 18 AP power. But the closer I get, the closer, the higher the damage I'll do. It's indicated by the kinetic here stat, which shows that the closer it will get from its target, the higher its AP value will rise. I don't really recall, I think it's plus 1 AP by 200 meters or 300 or 175, I'm not sure exactly. It has been tested on forums, but I don't remember. Well, basically it's that the closer you get, the bigger AP your gun will have. So basically what that means is that other thing you need to know is the AP formula. To deal damage to another tank, it's AP minus armor value divided by 2 and plus 1. So basically here, if you've got 18 AP versus 12 armor, it's 18 minus 12, 6 divided by 2, 3 plus 1, 4. You deal 4 damage against a 12 armored tanks with an 18 AP gun. So basically what happens is that if your AP is lower than the enemy's armor, for instance, imagine my AMX-40 with 18 here wants to attack the Challenger 1. I've got 18 AP and he's got 19 armor. That means I can't penetrate his armor at max range. I need to get in closer to hit the enemy tank, and I need to gain like 400 meters to gain plus 2 AP and be at 20, or just plus 1 be at 19. But the interesting thing is that if I get closer, he is closer also, so he'll deal more damage. This is why the range stat is really important. An MX-40 with 2200 meters and an MX-30 with 1900, this tank has to get closer to penetrate, but by the time he gets at a nice range of penetration, the AP power of the AMX-40 would have scaled to a point that one shot will just annihilate the AMX-30 in one hit, basically. So, range is really important. Range, accuracy, AP, and rate of fire. That's the main stats for the main gun. The other stats are a bit less relevant apart from the ATGMs. So real last thing about the tanks is the difference between NATO and Pact. NATO tanks are much more varied. Of course, they all come from different nations. They are all built by different nations. So the French tanks are generally lightly armored, but they have a nice accuracy and AP power and a nice speed. They are more or less sniping tanks that need to stay on the move. They have to move. They have to move fast. Stop because they have a bad stabilizer, but then they can shoot pretty well. But they don't take shots well either. So you need to move, stop, shoot, and then move again to avoid retaliation. British tanks is the opposite. You've got for their price nice armor, but the very slow speed and good guns. So good gun, nice armor, but very slow speed. It's more of a take a position and hold it with your big armor and nice gun. Same for the Challenger 1. Very slow speed, but awesome armor and good accuracy and medium AP power for its category. I mean, heavy tanks like these ones have generally better AP power, like the Leopard 2A4 with 19 and the M1A1 Abrams with 19 also. So you've got a nice variation of tanks on the NATO side. You've got even the Sweden tanks which have no turrets, so it's a bit weird. But these tanks are really nice. They've got 15 rounds per minute, and with the 15 AP, they are really awesome at dealing with medium or light tanks with their high rate of fire. It's a really awesome unit also. On the Pact side, all tanks are globally built by the USSR and just sold to the other nations. So you've basically got the same kind of tanks everywhere you go. So first, visually they are all pretty much the same. It's the same feel with the same looking tank with the same turrets, and So it's basically they are basically similar. They all have basic tanks, quite good, and the further they go, the better the equipment they have. They get equipped with ATGMs. They have a lot of ATGMs. On the NATO side, you've got just a few units, like specialized units, like the Sheridan here. Very light tank, but with an ATGM. On the packed side, however, all high-end tanks have ATGMs. Even the basic T-55 at the end of its tech tree goes to the AMV, which has a nice ATGM. And of course, the best ones go to the best tanks. T-64BV has a Cobra 820, the TATU 1024. That means that at 2,800 meters, so that's 600 meters, a bit less. At 600 meters further than the enemy tanks, they can shoot their missile and deal a huge amount of damage to the enemy tanks. That's really, really big. So that's the main difference. And the other difference is also added to the ATGMs is the main guns. Generally speaking, the NATO tanks have a nice accuracy, so that means that they hit quite often. The packed tanks have a nice ATGM, but have generally a lower accuracy than their NATO counterparts, so they fire at the same rate, have an AP power that is similar or better, like the TATU here, but their accuracy is generally a bit lower, so they have to compensate that by numbers or an ATGM hit before the real main gun to main gun fight starts. So that's it. Basically, a quick overview of the different tanks of on the different stands. So just to sum up, speed and stabilizers here, front and side armor and a bit top armor, and on the main gun, range, accuracy, AP power, rate of fire, and then secondary weapon. Generally, the packed tanks have an ATGM, NATO tanks don't, so that makes a bit of a difference also. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching this video, and see you quickly in a second video on about the tanks on the battlefield, giving you a few tips and on the use of tanks. Simply. Thanks for watching. See you quickly.